Welcome everybody here to SRI Performance. I'm Blake Harris, joined by Andy May. In front of us is our extensive line of Draco springs, and Andy here's going to tell you a little bit about them and what we have to offer here at SRI.
So we're going to run through and just give a general overview of the different springs that we offer. This is our offering of coil springs. So we start, our smallest springs outside of bump springs are going to be what we call our legend springs. We offer these in an 8-inch and a 10-inch rate. And in both of those heights, we offer the highest, tightest tolerance for spring rate in the market. We have these down in a lot of cases in 5-pound increments because we're holding tighter than 1.5% error on here. So whatever rate you get on there, typically we're within 1 or 2 pounds of being exactly that. Try and see if your other spring can do that. So we see these a lot in legend cars. We see them in midgets. We've won the Chili Bowl the last couple years. We're out there right now with several cars right now running up front. From the inch and 7/8 ID springs, we go to 2.5. And our 2.5, we've got all the way down to 7 and 8-inch lengths, all the way up to 12-inch lengths, and a few selected 14. We go from there to our 3-inch ID springs. So our 3-inch ID springs are a higher performance alternative to our 2.5 springs. When we go to a 3-inch, by increasing the diameter of them, we're able to space our coils out more. And by spacing the coils out more, we can get more travel, and we can get better linearity, and we can also get less bowing. And bowing in the spring and a coilover is one of the biggest problems you can run into, because as that spring bows, it puts side load into the shock. And that side load is friction in the shock, which decreases the performance of the shock. So we offer our 3-inch line down from 7 inches all the way up to 16-inch. From there, we go to our Draco proprietary 3.5-inch ID. And the 3.5 ID was one step further from the 3-inch to give us even more performance. This originally came out of the late model stock market, but we run these a lot in places where we need really tall, really soft springs and get a lot of travel out of them. So we offer these in some 16 and 18-inch lengths and really, really soft rates. And then from there, we go into our 5-inch coil springs. We really started out of the 5-inch coil spring market. This is what we ran in the rear of all of our NASCAR stuff. We offer these today as short as 9.25 in select rates, all the way up to our 18-inch for our really light rates for some of our dirt modifieds. And then we also have a full line of front springs. These are our 5-inch ID UMP springs, which is for a lot of our modifieds out there. It's a 5-inch by 9.5 height. And then we've also got our larger 5.5-inch ID front springs. And the 5.5 front springs are what we run in the NASCAR market. We'll see that in different places with modifieds and front clips where they don't have a 5-inch rule. And we've got those all the way from 8.75 in standard heights all the way up to 10.5. So to go with all this stuff, we've also got some hardware. When you start running your 3-inch coilovers, you probably don't have 3-inch coilover hardware. So we offer our spring adapters to go with it. We also offer 3-inch coilover bearings specific for these. We've got 2.5-inch coilover bearings for our standard 2.5 stuff. We've also got our own line of our proprietary spring stack dividers. We've got these for several different shock brands, and we offer these in multiple different configurations to fit 2.5-inch and 3-inch. So we've got different ones. We've got 2.5 here, 3-inch here, 3-inch on both sides, 2.5, flip the other way. And we also have coilover adapters for our 5-inch springs also. So we've got a full line of springs, and we've got all the hardware that you need to bolt it onto your car.
So out of all these different springs, what would you suggest? Say there's plenty of options here. That could also confuse somebody sometimes. Say you got your 2.5 and your 3.5. You said it works for different kind of tracks. Explain how that would work between the different tracks and what would work better on different kinds of length of tracks and surfaces.
So the first thing it comes down to is picking the spring based off the rate. So our first choice is always going to be rate, and we determine what rate we need for our setup. Then from there, we've got to look at how much is that spring traveled. So, if we sit there and we take a little short spring like this, we can't travel this spring 8 or 10 inches. So we're going to have to go to a taller spring. Typically, we're going to recommend that you run the largest diameter spring you can run because you're going to get the most performance out of it. It's going to have the least side load on it, the least bowing, but it's also going to give you the most travel out of that window. Now, that said, there are going to be limitations in your packaging to what you can fit height-wise. But typically, as you go down in rate, you're going to have to go up in height. And as you go up in height, you're going to want to go up in diameter so that you can get that stability and get the most performance out of your shocks.
So basically, if you're running what would be good? What would a taller spring come in more? Where would it gain you more in a dirt late model? Probably on a smaller track like a Fairbury, maybe like a width almost.
It's really going to depend more on the type of setup that you have in there. Where we're going to see this spring, this is a 3.5 by 1850 pound spring. This is going to be a spring we're going to run on our left rear, and this is going to be somewhere where we want a lot of extended load to hold the car up. Now, if we go somewhere that we're not as worried about extended load, we may go down to a shorter spring when we go up in rate. So say we pull this out and we just go to a traditional like a 150, then we're going to probably go from this down to a 14, maybe even a 12, but you're going to go to a much shorter spring because you're going to be coming off of it and gapping it, and you're not going to need to travel it as much to get to the same load for your ride height.
Yeah. Well, so we've talked about the rears. Now we're getting on to these two front springs we have here. Of course, we got the different diameters that work for your different apparatuses, but we also offer not only different heights or different rates, but different heights.
Yep.
So I know a lot of people from a left front to right front maybe want 150 pound split all the way up to 300, 400 pound split, but when do the heights come into variations with these, and how could they work differently throughout the different type of surfaces and tracks you run?
So first, we'll hit on the diameter a little bit. The 5-inch spring that we have here, we wind up having to run with a lot of our stock front clips, and it's also mandated by the rules in quite a few series. So this was something that we made specifically for the short track market because of what we got to do to fit stock clips and fit rules. When we go up to our 5.5 springs, we get to where we've got a lot more room to do a lot more creative stuff with this iron. So you can notice, for one thing, this one's got one less coil than that spring does because of that larger diameter. So we're able to make these lighter, and we're able to get more travel out of them. So anytime we can run one of these 5.5s, I highly recommend it over the 5. That's still a great spring, but that's something that's mandated by rules for a reason, because there's an advantage to going bigger. Now, when we get into different heights, the first thing is a lot of these stock clip cars don't have jack screws. So we need the different heights to be able to set our ride heights for the car when we change springs. So you may wind up having to go to a taller spring if you soften the rate a whole lot. But one of the other reasons is a taller spring is going to have more travel. So as we go down in rate, we may have to go to a taller spring even if we have jack bolts in the car, so that we're able to get enough travel out of the spring. So the most common stuff that we see in the short track market winds up being 9.5 inch in the front. But sometimes when we get some of these really, really low rates that we offer in the 10.5s, which we get all the way down to 200 pounds, you may have to get a taller spring to be able to get enough travel out of it. And then our 8 3/4 are a great option for some of these cars that maybe have a little bit less room in the front clip, or if you wind up going to a really, really stiff spring.
Yeah, a lot of people around here, they can't mess with the fronts, but they can with the back with the jack screw. So kind of back to these rear springs we got over here, that's more for these kind of stock clip rears. How will these jack bolts kind of also differentiate what spring you run on the rears?
Yeah, when we wind up getting into a case where we have jack bolts, then we've got a lot of flexibility there. So our most common springs that we offer for the short track market there are going to be in 11-inch and 13-inch heights. And what will wind up happening is the same thing. If you wind up running a lot of spring split in the rear and you do a really soft left rear package, you're probably going to wind up going taller. So if you've got, say, a 250 in your right rear, typically you're going to see that in something like the 11-inch range, and then you may be a 13-inch and a 125 or 150 in the left rear. But if we wind up, say, dropping down and we decide we want to put an 80 in the left rear and go real aggressive, that's when we may go up to something like a 16.
Well, you've heard it here. This is all of our options, and you can get this here at SRI Performance, located in Mooresville, North Carolina. They even got a store up in Indy we can get these up to if you're in that area as well. You can contact us here at 704-662-6982 at our Mooresville location, or you can check us out at sriperformance.com.